is back. So this event will be recorded as well. So for our students that are unable to participate with us today, they'll have that opportunity to watch off of our website. So first, if I could just have all of our panelists just go around briefly and just do a brief intro, just maybe what you studied, what your current job title and company are, and maybe just a brief overview of what you do. So I guess whoever wants to lead off can start.
Ladies first.
Well, I'll go ahead and start then. My name is Brittany Dessinger. I have my master's degree in human resource management and my undergrad degree in just general management with a collateral and information management. So I like dealing with data, especially people-oriented data. My current job title is an HR project specialist. I work at Covenant Health under our Director of Compensation and Benefits, which I'm sure I will get into a lot later. But again, my main focus in my job is managing projects that impact a variety of our HR functions around the company. So it's just me and 11,000 employees trying to figure out the best way to support them and support our leaders. So thanks for having me here today.
Awesome. Thank you, Brittany.
I guess I can go next. My name is Ashley Perkins. I'm the Director of Human Resources for Tennessee Urology. We have 13 physicians and 7 offices in the East Tennessee area. We're actually a nationwide company, part of the United Urology Group. So we are a growing organization. As terms of our HR, so we have a corporate office in Maryland, but I do all of the HR for our Tennessee market here. So I recruit in our talent, work on our culture, address any comp or benefits issues that come up, employee relations matters that may occur, and really just working a lot on employee engagement in our culture and trying to become sort of the best place to work in Knoxville. And I'm glad to be here too. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley.
All right, and I will go. My name is Jenna Osborne. I'm a senior HR associate at Team Health. Team Health is a healthcare company that staffs different types of healthcare facilities all across the nation. We are also a nationwide company with, I think, about 30,000 employees, but thankfully I don't service all of them. So we're regioned off in different areas. I am the HR representative for our specialty group, our OB, our behavioral health, as well as our hospitalists. So that varies all across. So I can be talking to somebody in Hawaii all the way up to Florida and California. So super diverse. It's really fun. I do servicing for the administrative people who help our clinicians in all those different areas, as well as the clinicians in those areas. So it varies in that regard, which I think is really interesting. And yeah, that's about me. And I'm happy to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Thank you, Jenna. And last but certainly not least, Nelson, who I feel like I should give a punch card for times that you've helped me out with events. You could get like a free, I don't know if I could offer you, like a free resume review, which you could probably do better than me at this point. So Nelson, take it away.
Hey, it's all good. I've read a few at this point. Also happy to be here, happy to be with my distinguished colleagues from the panel. So I did work in healthcare for a half a minute with Brittany. Good to see you again. The 22 years I've been in recruiting has mostly been in sales. I work for Blue Green Vacations currently and support 2 regions. Welcome to the pandemic, do more with less kind of stuff. Super fun. But we've got locations in about 100 different operations across the country. I support 15 states currently, manager of talent acquisition, and I studied HR 100 years ago at UT Chattanooga.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for joining in today. So my first question is just walk me through your career path thus far. So how did you get to the position that you're in currently?
I guess we'll just keep the same order.
Say, Brittany, you're the only one without your mic muted right now, so why don't you take this one to start?
So my first internship was with a global car part manufacturer just for about 2 months. I did basic intern stuff, and I thought that's kind of what the real world actually looked like. But thankfully, that job helped me get my next internship with a steel manufacturer. And I worked there as an intern for about 1.5 years before I was promoted to a safety specialist. And then I joined a professional organization called ETCBA, which is East Tennessee Compensation and Benefits Association. And that is how I met my boss, April, as she recruited me to Covenant from that company. And I've been working there for about 2.5 years now. And in the past 2 months, I've gotten promoted to my new role as that project specialist.
Awesome. I'm just going to just note a quick plug for students listening. Brittany got involved with professional organizations immediately, and that led to a new job and it sounds like recurring promotions. So just a plug for not necessarily for HR specifically, but just for any professional, get involved with your professional associations. So I'll let the next person talk. I just want to do a quick highlight on that point because that's a really good point for young professionals.
So I started my career at Georgia Pacific. I guess I did my undergrad at UT in HR. I have a master's in HR from UT as well. But so I did an internship for about a year at Oak Ridge National Lab. And from there, did a 12-month rotational position with Georgia Pacific, who makes like paper products and building products like Angel Soft, Brawny paper towels, things like that. So worked in their corporate office doing EEO and affirmative action, talent selection. Wanted to move back to Knoxville because Knoxville's home. A big Vols fan, go Vols. And so I worked in employee relations for a government contractor out in Oak Ridge for about 2 years, and then got into healthcare. So spent the last 6 years in the nursing home, long-term care, behavioral health industry as a director of HR there, and then moved over to be the director of HR here at Tennessee Urology about 1.5 years ago. So really started in employee relations and EEO and mostly, and now I'm more of a generalist role as sort of a director.
So I'll start mine out with a plug. So my first HR experience that I would definitely include on my resume was by connecting and networking with my professor, my mentor, and my forever friend, Dr. Debbie Mackey. I connected with her. She had an opportunity with a company called N4, which is it's a HRM, which means Human Resources Management System, where you kind of house all the different parts of what your organization's functioning on. So payroll could be in there, scheduling could be there, all your employees' information, it's linked. For my company, we use it. It's linked to our internal filing system, all kinds of different things. It just depends what your company needs. And there was a project management HR internship opportunity with Dr. Mackey in the Human Resources Department that partnered with that M4 company. I worked with alongside her and discovering different flaws or advancements or different kind of needs that could be implemented into an HR system, being able to see if it would be possible to implement it onto a phone type format, turn into an app, what that would look like, what that would need. I assisted in all of her classes that participated in learning about this HRIS system, where I assisted them with troubleshooting, teaching them how to use it, why it's important, all that good stuff. I helped with the lesson plan, and luckily, she sends out wonderful jobs right after, like every week. There's lots of jobs on her listserv, and I applied to one of them whenever I graduate. It was to Team Health, and I thankfully got it. And somehow we also use that M4 system, so those two things linked together. I started out at Team Health as an HR representative. So I worked in the field underneath a human resources generalist as well as an HR manager. So I really did a lot of inputting of data type role. I did things like I-9s, entering different providers' contract information, changing those in the HRIS system, working underneath the generalist to help be her witness on investigations, doing some onboarding and orientation for employees who came into the building and worked in there, just a lot of different things like that. I really valued that role because I worked right under the two different rungs of the ladder, if you will, that I could possibly foresee myself moving up into. So it was a very valuable time to me. I built a lot of experiences during that time. And then I think about 8 months in, we reorged how the reps would be utilized within the company. So originally they were in the field, like I said, and since we're a nationwide company, we had reps all across the nation who assisted those different regions. And we decided to house them all centrally and treat it more like a one-stop shop HR need type center. So we had to fortunately let go some people who were in different areas because they wanted it all to be in Knoxville. I was fortunately in Knoxville, and I was one of the only experienced reps that could stay with the company. So they offered me a senior position. So that was a yay for me. I took it hard being a young professional, having to move from my original role, but I'm so glad it did because it took me to where I am now. I accepted the role rather than the severance package, moved into the new building and worked on a team as a senior. I got to do so many different things. I loved working on a team. I made like a morale board. I made them send me all their shout outs, and I would print them and post them up. And we had like meme day where we'd all send in our favorite memes. And like, I get to really, our CHRO would call me chief morale officer. He's like, oh, wait, the chief morale. It was a really fun experience for me. But it did show me that that wasn't the role that I wanted to continue in. It had like a call center type, which I think is great for an open, like an entry level job. Like I think it's really great. You get to help a lot with a lot of different HR questions, talk to different people within the company, but I really wanted to progress, and I really wanted to be an HR generalist. And so the next step for me, there was 2 people who were HR generalists in my company who went off to go be on maternity leave, which I was super happy for them. But that also opened up an opportunity for me to where I could fill in for their roles. So for a while, I was actually managing that senior rep role. They took some of the burden off of me so I could be an HR generalist too. And I worked half the time in one building and half the time in the other building. And through their whole maternity leave, and it was absolutely amazing. I got to experience so much. I really got to sit in the role that I wanted to be one day. And then coincidentally, right when they came back, there was a role that opened for an HR generalist for our OB, our specialty, our HM area, which is what I do now. And I applied and I got it with that experiences that I gained, and the flexibility that I presented, that I was open-minded. I was willing to be able to take on those different tasks and different roles, and it got me to where I was now. So I've been with Team Health, it'll be 3 years in May, so 2.5 years. And I've moved quite a lot for that time period. And I think a big lesson for me is just take those opportunities and be flexible and be willing to learn as much as you can. And that's how I got to where I am now. And now they've renamed me, so I'm a senior HR associate now, and that's to really align with the more business partner role that I'm in. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Jenna.
Hey, so I'm going to start at campus, but I won't go through 20 plus years of this stuff, right? I'll fast track. A lot of great stories so far. So I think it's important to just say I really studied HR in the School of Business because everything else like econ, and there's nothing wrong with these things that I'm about to mention. They were just all wrong for me. Accounting and finance and everything else was way, way, way too data driven. HR had a lot of psych attached to it, and I've always been more on the leadership and people side. And so even from a campus perspective, I spent a whole lot more time in leadership roles in campus organizations than I did in the classroom. I'm not telling you that's a good thing. I'm just, for those that do that, I mean, maybe it could be me or better than me someday, I hope. But so really, my first professional role was an outside sales position, and every role I've landed, and I think it's 8 or 9 companies at this point. I won't go back and count. It's been a long time, but have 100% been through networking. I networked a lot in school. That was just a natural thing for me to do, to build organizations and pull organizations together to do campus projects and different events. And so I figured, well, that's something I figured out how to do. I should just keep doing it, right? So as a recruiter, you do that a lot to connect with folks like Debbie Mackey. I feel like I was in her classroom, although I'm a UT Chattanooga grad, not Knoxville. I've known Debbie longer than some of the students that will listen to this deal because it's been well over 20 years. Hired a lot of students through speaking engagements like this, but what I'd say professionally is 100% of the roles I've been in have been through networking, whether it's a classroom talk and meeting somebody there, or a competitor and going head to head and wanting to kill each other, and then they're your new boss. I have plenty of those stories across the way. It's been a fun journey. I love recruiting.
Awesome. Thank you. Great example of, career paths aren't necessarily linear. It's going to take you in a bunch of different directions. You don't necessarily know where it's going to go. But I think, as Jenna mentioned too, if you keep that kind of mindset about the future more towards, capitalizing on opportunities and kind of that, real mindset, in my opinion, versus, potentially being, afraid of uncertainties or worried about what those changes might be. But if you tackle it with that kind of more of a growth mindset than a fixed mindset, it's pretty obvious that it can have some amazing results. All right, so moving on down. We've heard a bit about kind of your career path, how you've gotten to where you are, a bit about what you do, but what were some of the deciding factors that led you to your current function of HR versus, some of the other options? Obviously with 4 different panelists, all in different roles, there's obviously a bunch of different career paths that students can choose all within that umbrella of HR. So talk a little bit about what was it about the role that you're in now that drew you in the most versus some of the other avenues that were available within HR?
So I'll start. So in my second internship that I was there for about a year and a half, our generalist actually left at one point, and so I filled in for that role, and I'm very grateful for that because it taught me what areas I don't like in HR, like recruiting. I'm what I call a social introvert, so I like people, but they make me very tired. So I knew that I didn't want to be in any kind of very hands-on recruiting, L&D, learning and development. I'm very good in organization and support and data. And there is a section of that in HR that's very strong, either with HR analytics or with, like Jenna was talking about, with HRIS, housing the system of data and being able to pull that data. And I didn't know what that was in college at all. I just thought HR, they hired and fired people and that was just about it. But there really are so many areas. And just being exposed to the different areas, through networking, like Nelson said, and talking to people about what they actually do on a day-to-day basis helped me say, oh, that's something that I'm actually really good at and it's fun for me to do. How can I tie that into HR and apply those skills?
Perfect. Thank you.
So for me, I went to college not really knowing what I wanted to major in, and somebody came to like a business class and talked about human resources, and I've always had a heart for people, but love business. So HR is a good mix of, you really have a position where there's so many fulfilling things you do that make people's lives meaningful and impactful, because when you get somebody in a job that they love and you set them free to do what they're good at, there's nothing, that's one of the best feelings in the world, because people really thrive when they're in these best fit roles. So for that reason, I found, HR, because how much I love people and sort of love that kind of thing, to be a good fit. I like being a generalist because I don't like having to pick and choose what I get to do. I love training and development and delivering training. I love coaching managers and working to find win-win solutions to issues that are going on. I love partnering with leadership to, if there's a challenge going on in the organization, finding ways that HR can solve those challenges. People are where businesses spend the most of their money. And getting good talent is a struggle that every industry has and every company can have. So building good benefit packages, having good compensation packages, having a great recruitment strategy to keep talent in the pipeline to get them in the door, and then getting them in the right seat on the bus and the bus moving in the right direction. So I like getting to do a little bit of all of it because I can be analytical and work on, analytics in terms of our comp plan or our benefit plan, but I can still also be, engaging with people and working on people issues or employee relations issues that may come up at work. And working on culture. So I get to do a little bit of everything, which is what I really like about HR.
I feel like that allows you to make sure that no day is going to be the same too. When you have, responsibilities that stretch out that far. I mean, it could be anything on any given day.
Yeah, absolutely. Every day is a different day, which I love, having, new challenges and new things to do.
Absolutely. Jenna?
Yeah, mine's pretty closely aligned to Ashley's. I mean, when I was in college, in high school, I competed a lot in different types of business competitions and stuff, and I excelled at it. So I was like, okay, I like business. That's all I got. So I went to college, and I started out with marketing because I knew it was creative. It was not my thing. Nothing wrong with marketing, but like Nelson said, it just wasn't for me. It just wasn't my thing. So I went to my advisor. I looked at my list of collaterals. I stick with management because management, I knew that was something I wanted to see for myself one day. And then I had to pick a collateral because I'm so glad UT does that. But I had no clue. I looked at all the different things, and I love people. I love helping people. I love making connections with people. We're picking people. I have no idea what HR is, but we're going to go for it. I took my classes. I met Dr. Mackey, and I learned that it was something that I really enjoyed. And it wasn't until I started to get that real hands-on career experience that I learned how much I enjoyed being a generalist. And I'm fortunate with my company that things like recruiting and benefits are things that I don't have to be super duper involved with, but just enough for me to feel like that's a diverse piece of my role, right? So a lot of my job that I completely is like my favorite part, I guess, which I think you touched on that later, so sorry, is coaching managers, and partnering with those leaders and being able to offer a perspective. Like whenever I can see a manager or employee respond to me in a way that I have shown them a different way to look at something, or I work with a lot of different departments, and whenever we collaborate, I need to borrow your HR brain. I need to borrow your legal brain. Hey, let me talk to you about what's going on with payroll. Like, because we all can offer those different types of things to each other, and it's so valuable to me to be able to be that person that can offer that HR brain, if you will, and being able to use my different parts and to put on different caps, be able to find the best solution to a problem, be able to help that manager see the solution that can help the employee, the business, as well as what they want to see, and as a result of this. So with all those different, just building those relationships, being able to see an employee excel because we reached a great solution, right? To be able to see them actually be able to continue with their role and exceed in it and build relationships with their supervisor and be able to keep that train rolling on a good path. It's invaluable. I just absolutely love it. So, and being a generalist, you get to know, I've never had a day at Team Health where my day was the same. So I don't even know what I'm getting into every time I open up my laptop, but that's the exciting part. So, and I enjoy that a lot. So yeah, thank you.
Hey, so I think at a very early age, probably honestly middle school, I'm standing in groups of people and you've got to have a leader do something, and everyone's standing and looking at me like, well, you're the leader, whatever it is we're doing, help us figure it out. Never the smartest, the fastest, the tallest, or the most athletic or whatever. I mean, I can kind of do a little bit of everything, but never going to be the best. But what I've always been good at is trying to get others around me to tap into their potential, right? Whether it's that encouraging thing to get them in the right, in the corporate sense would say get them in the right seat on the bus from a job perspective. In a student group, in high school, college, whatever, it's a little bit different. But so I guess when I had an opportunity to leave outside sales and get into a staffing firm in Chattanooga, which meant I just serviced placing really entry-level people in temp and temp to hire kind of jobs all across the market. I quickly realized that that would be the best place to be, right? Now, I didn't know what, 20-something years later, I jumped to all these different places and work for other staffing firms and get into healthcare without being able to spell nurse well. Still, I'm not totally confident I can do that, but it's always been about getting the right people in, getting them in the right spot, and occasionally finding people that just need a little nudge, a little encouragement after you get to know them, and going, "Hey, Brittany, you'd really be good at this. Try this thing out," or whatever, right? Now, I wish I could take credit for bringing you to Covenant, but just meeting people, right, and figuring out what they're good at, and kind of where they can go. Some people just need some encouragement. I've stayed in the role because I think, and several of my colleagues have, I think, isolated this. I've heard for decades, and I think we'll continue to hear, that one of the most important assets in any organization is going to be the people, right? I'd say as a job seeker, students that are going to graduate soon, if you're not nervous, you probably will be. And it's not my intent to make you nervous about upcoming interviews. It's just normal. It's not normal for me. I get excited, but most people don't, right? So, there's the job seeker side of it. I'm terrified about interviewing. You don't need to be. If you want coached, I'll help you. It doesn't matter where you're going. Call me anytime. And then on the hiring manager side, usually one of the most difficult decisions a leader is going to have is, do they pull the trigger? Do they hire me or do they not hire me? Right? So it's very difficult, very challenging, very stressful. I mean, why wouldn't you want to do it? I love recruiting.
Awesome. Thank you, Nelson. All right. So the next question I've got for you guys is, what's something that you wish, you might have gotten a tip for, or something that you would have known while you were still in school? And then, maybe even if you could tack on at the end, something specific for students who are getting ready to graduate soon, especially given, what this job market kind of now looks like. And just, not even just the job market, but just what everybody's reality just looks like now. Things changed in an instant. I remember it was kind of crazy to think about how fast things were changing in March, and even still now there's a bunch of who knows. So if you think about, I guess kind of a two-part question. One, maybe what's a tip that you wish you got where you were still in school? And then part two, anything specific that you'd have for students that are getting ready to graduate soon?
So I kind of touch on some topics we've already talked about because it was just so impactful to me. So, you're always taught in school, try to get, 4.0 and be involved and all this stuff. And at the end of the day, yes, that stuff is important, but who is much more important. Being able to, because I remember graduating, I had my master's degree, I was top of my class, I'd had leadership roles in several student organizations, and I was like, someone hire me. And I kept getting turned down, and I was like, but I'm a great candidate. But as soon as I knew someone that worked at the company I wanted to, immediate. And that's something that I've realized now. It is so hard with the talent pool that's out there to get a job when you don't have a connection. So my biggest tip is to start forming connections, because I think, especially with the people I've worked with, they really find they really have respect for some of the younger generation who is actively involved in getting to know people, making connections, networking, talking on LinkedIn, going to professional events. And so I was involved with the UT SHRM group when I was there, TVHRA, our professional HR organization, and now ETCBA. And all of that has really helped me grow in my field. And again, every single job I've gotten is because of Dr. Mackey or knowing someone who worked at the company. Because if you are a hiring manager and you are getting hundreds of applications coming across your desk, the person that's going to stand out is, oh, so-and-so knows you. Oh, tell me what you know, because that's a lot more a strong, I guess, opinion, because you know that person's going to show up and going to do a good job versus someone that may look good on paper, but actually come in and cost the organization a lot of money.
Absolutely. It's the what I've heard to kind of compare before. If you have to do a group project and there's, someone like one of your friends really well who's going to do great work sitting next to you, and the other side is someone who, looks studious and looks like they would do a good job, you're always going to go with the one on the right. You're always going to go with that trusted reference. So it makes sense. Great advice, Brittany.
Sure.
So, I think it's important when you graduate school to keep learning. So I think the more that you can continue to learn, so find books that you're interested in on topics related to HR. There's so many good books out there and articles that you can read that can really expand upon your knowledge and help you to just become a better subject matter expert. So school sort of isn't the end all be all. You really need, on top of your real world experience, to keep learning, keep reading, keep networking with what other people are doing and what works. It's okay. What I wish someone would have told me is it's okay to make a mistake. You don't have to be perfect. So make a mistake, learn from it, and move on, because those mistakes are some of the best teachers. And it's okay to try something and it not work. Sometimes you have to throw several things on the wall to see what sticks. Not everything is going to work every time, and you have to be not afraid to make some of those choices. You're not going to look stupid if it doesn't work the first time. It's okay to try 2 or 3 different things, especially if you're talking about culture. Not everything works the first time, and not everything works with the same group of employees. One thing might work great at one company and not work at another. So it's okay to try and it's okay to fail. The other advice I give is your first 90 days on the job anywhere is to listen and make sure you fully understand what people are telling you before you try to seek to make your imprint or make changes. First, understand why it works the way it does, why they set it up the way that it works. And then if you have ideas, maybe 90 days in, then go ahead and start volunteering and doing that. But the first thing to earn respect on the front end is to listen, really make sure you understand the business, understand how it works and why it works that way before you really jump in about making changes, unless you see something so detrimental you just can't not. But otherwise, listen first, ask a lot of questions, gather a lot of knowledge before you really start jumping in to make your impact, so that you make a well-educated impact.
Absolutely. I remember that being something I struggled with in my first job after my master's degree, is I wanted to come in, make that massive impact immediately, and make, the people feel great that they chose me as their person that they got hired, especially because, with someone, the first job out of college, you're like, I really got to make sure that they feel good about hiring me, because I haven't worked before. And so I think that's extraordinarily relevant that students kind of face that anxiety of needing to come in and, make that massive impact immediately. But yeah, until you know the culture, until you know who the main stakeholders are, the best bet, absolutely without a doubt, is just listen, just observe. And then once you have the necessary information, make the move. So yeah, again, great advice.
So my top advice would 100% be networking and find those people. Brittany completely covered that perfectly. But to kind of elaborate on that is you got to find those networking. You have to take all those opportunities you can. You have to join those professional organizations. If I didn't get more involved with SHRM, I wouldn't have built that connection with Dr. Mackey like I did, right? And I was the vice president of communications for the campus events board, and I met so many different connections. I'm still friends with one of the directors for the different art committees in Knoxville and things like that. So just making sure you're involved enough to where you can make those connections. Go to that professional meeting that your teacher is pressing you to go to. Even if you feel awkward and you got to dress up, who cares? Just go to it. You'll learn and you'll meet new people. They sit you at round tables. You make new friends. I have so many friends on LinkedIn from things like that. And trust me, I felt awkward and weird, but I did it anyway. And I'm so much more comfortable in situations like that. And I've had great experiences and met people. And take those chances. If they're like, there's a student board position open, take it, go for it. Reach out to people, find opportunities. For example, my dad still makes fun of me for this because he calls it nerdy, but I think Brittany would appreciate it. And it's not nerdy. But I took the Excel class, which I loved. The Excel class that UT requires you to take, I absolutely loved it. It was totally up my alley. It was everything. I loved it. It made sense. It was organizational. I also loved accounting, by the way. So I went and finished the class, and then the classes after me, their final was the certification from Microsoft. So I didn't have that as my final. It was like a new thing, and right now they were beta testing for it, and I heard about it from one of my friends. So I reached out to that professor, even though I knew my path wasn't going to be information, management or whatever. That's what that would be, information management. But I reached out to her anyway. I thought she was a really great person. I wanted to learn more from her. I wanted to build a connection, and I wanted to see if that opportunity could be available to me. I think I was like a sophomore during this time. She said, sure, come be a beta tester. Come sit in on this. I am the only sophomore in the middle of all these different grad students. I'm completely like the odd one out, but I didn't care. I was so excited to be a part of this. And I made a better grade than she did on it. She told me that I surpassed her with how well I did on that Microsoft exam, and I was excelled. I was the only person in my class that was certified for that because I went and I sought out that opportunity. I went and I asked to go just do it. I heard about something and I just went, and sometimes all it takes is a question. And so you just learn different things. I at one point in college, I was considering doing hotel resort management. I walked up to one of our speakers and asked them additional questions, and she almost offered me an internship. I decided I didn't want to go that route, so I decided not to pursue it, but she was ready to move forward with me. So just different things like that it's just invaluable. Just go take that chance. Go ask that question. Go talk to that person. Go to that event. I've stood alone at different events, and it's changed a different course for me. And so things like that, I think I wish I did more of, honestly. I think I could have gained more experiences. I wish I did another internship, which I could have maybe been awarded if I did more things like that. But even the ones I did proved to have changed, my direction with HR. So, and then my advice I would give to graduates is take all those experience, right? And don't sell yourself short. If you're sitting in an interview and someone asks different things and you've never done that thing before in your life, right? You could probably take an experience that you've done and apply skills that would be needed for whatever they're asking and apply those to prove that you could probably do that yourself. So just using those different types of tactics during interviews just makes all the difference. And I think that applies for anybody. My previous roommate is trying to find a librarian job, and I tell her that constantly. That thing you learned in class, that project that you did with, 15 different people that drug you to the ground, you can probably take the skills that we're working on that project and apply them to a question that they're asking about in an interview. And back it with confidence. Always answer your questions with examples. Give an example of why you're reliable. Give an example of why that's your greatest strength or that's your greatest weakness and why you want to work on that weakness and what you're doing currently to move yourself forward to be better with that weakness. So, and the experience, like the confidence behind your words, and just comes off really well. I did touch on recruiting a little bit, and I wish I could coach them from behind, right? I would ask more questions to try to get them to can you elaborate on that, because I know you got more in there for you, right? But just don't be that. Think about those different experiences and elaborate on them and give those examples, and don't ever sell yourself short. You went to an amazing school. UTK is phenomenal, and I'm sure you carried so many experiences and different connections with you along with that degree. So just remember that whenever you are interviewing.
So this is the first HR panel that I've done. I've done a few different industries, and I just think I'm just head nodding the entire time. I think it's just because we're on the other side of it, right? I'm on this side getting students to prepare for the interviews and do all that and all these advice, and then you just get to spit it right back to them. So I feel like I'm perfectly in sync. I'm yes, this is exactly what I would want a panelist to say. And then I remember I'm oh yeah, I guess that makes sense because they're just on the opposite side of what I'm doing too. Nelson, go ahead.
Yeah, hey, so a lot of good stuff, and I couldn't agree more. One thing I'd say just real quick, I took some time right before my 20th year in recruiting to write a few articles on LinkedIn that I continue to publish or promote or post, whatever. Anyone that wants to follow and learn and read through some of those things, that really I'm thinking more to help you prep for interviews, but they're also a series to talk with you when you get further along in your life and become a hiring manager, kind of how to navigate that well. So for, gosh, I guess it's more than 10 years. I don't know. I won't do the math. For a long time, I've been to UTK's campus to deliver a networking presentation in a variety of classrooms, through the Center for Career Development, through College of Business, the HRT program, a bunch of different places, and a lot of student organizations. I stopped counting after I had delivered this hour-long talk for like the 50th time. I'm getting to a point. It was all about networking. That's the entire presentation was an hour on networking, and that was trying to cram it into an hour. Finally, a brave student pulled me aside and said, "Hey, dude, we hate that. You hate networking? No, you just can't use that word. Like, that's not something you should really say. We're terrified. We don't like it. It makes us uncomfortable." Okay. Well, let's talk about what I really mean and what I think these folks on the panel have just covered, right? It's really, I think it's all just about making connections. It's about, if I'm going to join that group or get involved in that community thing once I'm out of school, you know, I mean, this is going to sound like, well, duh, but still do what I'm saying. Do things that matter to you. If you're not passionate about comp and benefits, you don't join the East Tennessee Comp and Benefit Association, right? It would be boring. You'd hate all the meetings, right? And you'd be faking it. So I'm really saying just jump into things that interest you. Then going to the meetings and connecting with people doesn't feel like networking, which is maybe that thing you don't like. So I think what many of us have experienced in life, I love that term. I get excited about it. Most people don't, but I see a lot of different personalities and a lot of different disciplines that network really well. I think they just frame it a different way. They call it something different, right? Well, and it's about pursuing your passion, right? Maybe you do read a great book, to Ashley's point, and then the author is going to be in town. Well, why would you want to go meet him or her? Well, that's networking. Sorry if I labeled it the wrong way for you and it made you uncomfortable, but that really is the way you generate job leads. Back to everybody's point, I've studied it for decades. If you want to get ahead, that's one thing you've got to do. If we are equally qualified and you network and I don't, you win, I lose every single time, 100%. Got into healthcare several years ago knowing nothing other than I had a lead that brought me into the SVP of HR's office. I didn't want to be in HR's office. That's always an uncomfortable place for me because I'm really just a recruiting guy, not an HR guy. And I didn't know healthcare, but I was smart enough to know if I got the right people would win. Initially, almost 100% of the staff that I hired when I had to rebuild the entire team from the ground up was through networking. And a year later, they helped the entire HR department win a President's Excellence Award, and it hadn't been done before. It has zero to do with me. It has everything to do with the right people, right seat in the bus, and building a network, right? And it was through folks like Dr. Mackey and others that have been mentioned already. So the thing that I'd give, the other piece of advice, I guess, that I've fallen into from a career perspective, and it's not something that anybody said to me. It's something that I think just happened through stuff I just learned as a high school student and a college student about people. I've always been blessed to work for a lot of just incredible people. Now, I don't want to work for all of them again. I should say that as well. Some were just great learning experiences, and I'm glad I don't work for them anymore. I won't name names. I'm not going to share any companies, and I could probably get some amens if the mics were off from my colleagues, right? That's part of life. Some of it can just be a great learning experience, and you move on to your next role. But I will tell you that all of them have been mentors, 100%. Now, some were mentors to teach me I don't want to do what they do and I don't want to ever work for them again, but I still walked away and I learned things. Others have been lifelong mentors, including my current supervisor, who came out of retirement to get into the job he's in. And when he called and said, "Hey, you need to leave healthcare and come do this thing," I'm like, "Well, you should get hired first before you hire me. But as soon as you start, like, I'll be there the next week," right? So I would tell you to work for a mentor. It would be better for you to take a lesser paid role, something that looked a little less glamorous. Oh man, I'm going to blow all the statistics up, right? About what you're supposed to do in life. But this is just what I would believe to be a fact. If you work for a mentor, someone that's really going to invest and develop you, that'll pay lifelong dividends. It's worth less money, less glamour, less whatever. You'll be farther ahead in your life. I'm convinced I'm far ahead in life because I've worked for some great people.
What a beautiful transition to my next question, Nelson. You couldn't have teed that up better for me if you tried. So along those lines, it is so important to find those, great people to work for. But, I think what goes hand in hand with that is a good company culture and finding an environment and an atmosphere that you thrive in. It's beyond just, the job responsibilities. It's beyond just the salary and benefits and the whole comprehensive package. But something else that is really important to consider is that, company culture aspect. So that's what my next question is. Just tell me a little bit about what your company culture is like, what it's like to work there.
So,
maybe remind our students who it is that you work for again, because we haven't touched on that since the beginning.
So I work for Covenant Health. We are a local healthcare organization. And I really think because we are so spread out and we have so many different types of organizations within our greater parent organization, you'll get little bubbles of different cultures at every hospital you visit. So I'm really going to touch on what I perceive as the HR company culture. For me, to Nelson's point, I took this job for a very big pay cut from where I was before coming to Covenant Health, but I knew that it was a great company with great leadership, a non-for-profit, heavily active in the community. And as soon as I met my leaders, I just knew, like, if they left, I would follow them because they're incredible. So in my personal area, we have a very strong company culture of being very, independent. We trust each other to do each other's jobs, which is really important for me because we'll talk about something as a team and then we'll go off and do the things we're good at and come together and make something good. We realize things that we are good at. We realize things that we aren't so good at. So my boss has a very good understanding that he likes to think big without thinking about the details. So then he comes to me and says, is this realistic? And that's the kind of dynamic that I really appreciate because we all work as a team. We're very supportive, but we're also confident and trust that everyone knows what they're doing. And if not, we're very willing to help out as much as we can. But for me, I like it again because it's challenging and it pushes me to make sure, that my role is something that's important to the team. I'm not just kind of there going along. I have a very critical part to play. And we have to do that because like in just my department as a whole, there's 3 of us. And that's the entire compensation for the entire company. So we really have to be good at our jobs. And so for me, that culture of being very, very independent in our own passions, but working together cohesively as a team is one of the reasons why I've stayed here.
So, our mission at Tennessee Urology is to ensure that we are delivering our patients a superior experience. So everything we talk about and we do is geared towards how do we make sure we're delivering a superior experience for our patients. So our employees know that when they're on the floor and there's 2 or 3 MAs on the floor and they're working hard, if one of them is having a bad day, the only other people who can pick them up and help them is probably the other MA standing beside them. So we try to focus on teamwork. We try to focus on peer-to-peer appreciation, manager appreciation. And then healthcare is one that is subject to a lot of burnout. When you are doing the same thing and you're handling patients and your job is very serious and you work long hours, sometimes it can be a thankless job. So we try to say thank you. But we also try to invest in our employees by doing things like having tuition reimbursement. We have a very strong wellness program and wellness culture. So we try to promote wellness and we do a topic each month to focus on health and well-being. The other thing we do is try to inject a little bit of fun. We believe that we take our job seriously. We don't always have to take ourselves seriously. So like upcoming, we'll have a Halloween costume contest and we'll do a company-wide voting and give some prizes for that. We'll do Star Wars Day. We'll do Football Day. We'll do Flannel Friday for Fall Day. I mean, it feels like every week we do something on a Friday that people can engage in and jump in and do, just to do something a little different. Even if it's just wearing a superhero shirt, it's still something that you can do that injects a little fun. The patients love it. The staff love it. And so that's just some of the things we try to do sort of in our culture. But as Brittany said, there's many cultures everywhere. At every office, there's a different culture and a different thing works there. So it really is sort of specific and very diverse as well.
So I work at Team Health, and I do think that the name is greatly representative of the culture there. I think Team Health is very much team oriented. I'll kind of start out from like when I worked in a facility because now I'm completely remote and then how that kind of evolved. When I worked in the office, it was with all kind of different departments, right? It was from schedulers to credentialers to onboarding team to contracting to payroll, all separate, all across this office. Probably 300 employees in this building. And just to see them interact with each other, help each other out, stand in each other's cubes on their lunch break, just say, hey, you want to go get lunch? And just that collaborative. And I think the reason that became a thing is because like Team Health really does a lot of things to make sure their employees are engaged and be able to, you know, be with each other. Every month we would do a birthday celebration, which I was heavily involved in, to where we'd, you know, usher them all to the back to be able to meet each other and intermingle, because we really wanted our employees to feel an identity within their company. And I think a lot of companies feel that way. If you don't identify, you know, with your company and feel like Brittany said, like you're a part of the bigger picture, you make a difference in that company. And I think really integrating those different departments and being able for them to see what each other does for each other, because I don't know how it would work at you all's company, but at ours, every department is dependent on the other. If my recruiter doesn't do something that I need my recruiter to do, I get put in a little bind, right? If my payroll person doesn't enter in something, I get like, someone comes and emails me and gets angry and I have to go fix it. So all across the board, if I get told that someone's going to get paid more and my contracting person doesn't put that in, something happens. So building those relationships across the board and being able to make the employees feel comfortable with each other and feel engaged with each other all across departments is absolutely, like, it's amazing. It's amazing to see. And so I was on the floor and I was able to see that whenever I worked in the Southeast Group office. Eventually I moved to our Fort Lauderdale office. I was remote from them. I stayed in the Southeast Group office, but I flew down every month to go be with those employees who I was remote HR for. And just seeing them, same thing, collaborate. Their Employee Appreciation Day was as South Florida as it gets. It was so much fun. I can't even explain to you. And just to see them interact with each other all across different departments. And I know that has to do with the collaboration and the efforts that we put in to be able to make sure our employees are involved with each other and know they make a difference to each other and they make a difference to the department as a whole. And that's something, even whenever I'm coaching a manager, I make sure they understand, you know, we need to make sure that employee understands like what they're doing matters. And the reason we need them to, like, we're giving them this like cup of coffee conversation is because what they do matters and we know that they can do it. And I know that's an attitude across the board for us. And it means a lot to me. And it comes from down to me as well. My supervisor gives me autonomy. Just like Brittany said, we collaborate together. We're a 3-person team as well. We collaborate together. We talk about different things. I'm also the person that looks at the little things. I know I have the ground understanding of the different pieces of how one decision can affect like 1,000 little ones, because I'm the one that started from the bottom basically at our company as a whole. And so I'm the one that can offer that type of visual. I know what the representatives are going to be affected by if we move with this decision. So we all work together and then we part ways and we trust each other. And we know that we make a difference with each other and we check in on each other and make sure that we're doing okay. And just things like that is our culture as a whole. Even now on Friday is our Employee Appreciation Day. And of course we can't gather together like we used to. I'm not flying to South Florida, unfortunately. We are going to have a virtual celebration where our leaders are speaking, our CEO is speaking, Chief Medical Officer is speaking. Me and my other get together that we were so hilariously trying to act together today. I speak so much better like this, and then when we're trying to act and try to do it like with a script, it was horrible. We tried to pretend we were a phone message, like, "Hi, you've reached HR, and this is Jenna, and I'm gonna tell." Yeah, it was a lot. But just those types of moments, and we're really trying to keep them involved to make sure they feel like they're still a part, even though now we're all remote from each other, and it's to keep safe, and that's important, but we still want everyone to feel like they're a part of the company. We've done like trivia competitions this week via email. We did a scavenger hunt where we had to find like different things within your apartment, in your house or apartment or wherever you live, and send a picture of it. And so just those types of things, they've truly shown that we're still trying to make that effort to keep us that team and team health. So, yeah.
Awesome. Hey, so I'm with Blue Green Vacations, and we sell vacation ownership, or also called timeshare, and have done it for over 50 years. We've got locations all across the country. I think we're back up over 3,000 employees again. We were closed for half a minute in the spring. That was super fun. Not, right, with everything that hit. But so one of the taglines we use a lot, and I think it describes our culture and also our product, is share happiness. I mean, we're selling an opportunity to essentially force families and couples, et cetera, to go on awesome trips all across the country. So our culture, it's definitely a sales organization. It's fast paced, it's competitive. There's a lot of rewards. There's a scorecard. If you don't like score, you shouldn't come work for us, because we definitely keep score. Phenomenal. If you're not, then maybe not so much, right? Or you got to find a different seat on the sales bus and still like that atmosphere, but maybe not like the attention that not doing well can come with. Family-oriented organization, even though we're fairly large in terms of numbers and the growth is continuing to be there. It's a public company that really is very closely held by an investment group that's hands-on with the organization and almost runs like a mom and pop in terms of it doesn't take a million years to make a decision, I guess is what I'm trying to say, right? And I've worked places in my past where it did take a lot longer for a variety of reasons. So think fast-paced, a lot of fun, a lot of contests, a lot of theme days, like everything that they said in all these other companies is a constant daily, weekly, to the point that I can't keep up. I mean, we're always going to be doing something cool and posting it and sharing it and tweeting it and coming up with the next cool thing and fun thing we can do to motivate folks. So great place to work.
Thank you, Nelson. All right, so we are getting close on time before I want to open up to students. So let me see. So let's say this, I think, would be good. So for students who are, preparing for a career within the field of HR and trying to, be as prepared as possible when they do graduate, what trends or what predictions would you guys have for what some things in the future of HR might look like? Whether it's things that might be changing drastically, or things that you've noticed and that you think it's going to be more of the same towards the future. We don't necessarily, I know there's a bit harder of a question potentially, so we don't have to start with you necessarily, Brittany. If you've got one ready, obviously we can go with you, but you're ready? All right, awesome.
Yeah.
Why don't you lead off again?
And I've thought a lot about this question because, sometimes in HR, we get very zoned into what we're doing and what's happening now, versus taking a step back and kind of looking at where we're going. Because at least in my organization, it feels a lot of the times we're just fighting fires and we're trying to get to the next day versus taking a step back to be very strategic and intentional, which is something we're wanting to do. But this was a good question to help me really think what the future of HR kind of looks like. And one of the things that may not come to mind at first, but that I've put a lot of thought into is I think that in the coming years, technology, we're going to be able to harness technology a lot better to automate a lot of processes. And I know that for a lot of people, that's very nerve-wracking because the job that I was in at Covenant when I first started was a data specialist. And I remember talking to my boss within the first week and saying, this job can be automated. And like in the next 5 years, this job could not exist. And so I really think that there's going to be a big push to almost, it looks like HR is moving backwards, but I really think it's moving forwards to make the technology a lot more automate a lot more parts of the job so that we as HR professionals can actually be very intentional with our employees. So like one of the things that we're talking about at Covenant, we have a position solely set up to manage our FMLA and leave process. And we were talking about how much more strategic we could be to automate all of the tracking of that and have the people in that position managing the actual employee experience with that. So talking to them, checking in along the way, providing a lot of resources, and almost being more like a guide. And I really think that from what I see in HR, that's going to be more of the future where the HR person is really there to fulfill the employee experience and just use the technology kind of a background runner, which again, it might not be the most linear path forward, but I really think that that's what's going to help also this upcoming generation stay very connected to their work, is having someone that they feel like is there to help guide them through the process and empower them.
Yeah, I actually agree a lot with Brittany. I think that we have gotten sort of used to in HR sort of building products and building policies and things that we do, but not always having the analytics behind it. And I think we're getting more and more analytical. I think more and more companies are wanting to prove their return on investment in HR and the return on investment in their people, because you spend a lot of money on people. And so I think we're going to continue to grow on the analytical end, continue to grow on the technology side. I think the other piece of that would be diversity. I think we're entering a space where we have just a very diverse world and people feel very differently about things. And so I think the diversity and inclusion aspect of HR is going to grow over this next little bit to harness the energy, because having a diverse organization is enormously beneficial because you want people to bring up multiple perspectives and multiple viewpoints to a problem, because the only way you solve problems then have great solutions to keep companies moving forward. But it's not enough to be diverse if you're not also inclusive. So I think that there will be diversity inclusion initiatives that continue to grow over the next course of the years. It's already happening, but I think it will continue to just, expand from here.
I absolutely agree. It's interesting that you bring that up. Actually, that's actually one of the projects that I've been working on this semester, is developing things like diversity scorecards and ways that we can help our employers, be more supportive and have those resources available. Because we hear a lot of companies saying, we want to hire diverse candidates, and that's great. But what's missing from that is, okay, well, what do you have in place to support those diverse candidates once they're working for you? And so I mean, it's just funny that you brought it up, because that's been my focal point a lot this semester. Is I've had less time for in-person events and programming and stuff like that. I mean, this is the only programming I'm doing this semester, and usually it's like multiple things every month that I'm working on. So on the back end stuff is that exact point. So it's interesting that you brought it up, just because it's the future, but it's also the present, I think, in a big way too. Which I guess I would also agree with that with Brittany's too. We're seeing the wheels in motion, right? With technology advancing already. I mean, we're doing a Zoom panel, right? And now everything is on Zoom. So yeah, absolutely. Jenna?
Yeah, I completely agree with those 2 points. And, with that, I think our leadership and our managers and the other, buy-ins are going to need our help, right? And I think that HR is moving in the direction of being more of a business partner. I think I've been seeing that, like in the past, if you think of an HR person, you thought of just a policy pusher and someone who knows the laws and what can get you in trouble. But I think we're moving in more of a trend that HR is going to be a true HR business partner. And along with that, I do think this whole change of the pandemic is really going to affect your role in HR, as well as what you possibly could see, what your role is going to look like, and how you're going to have to support other people in managing roles. And what I mean by that is, and I'm seeing that for myself, I've been coaching my managers a lot lately on how to manage their remote employees. I've been taking the time to get on the SHRM website and research different tactics on how we can manage performance. We can help them be more engaged. And with all this different type of information, the technology, the diversity, the building, with being able to help your managers manage through the pandemic and becoming an HR business partner, I think as graduates or people still in school, you should think about how you can offer, what you can make a difference with those different changes. How can you be more than what the technology could have offered? Like, how can you ride alongside those changes and be able to promote those and make it better? How are you going to put diversity and inclusion in your organization? How are you going to take that initiative to make that difference? How are you going to be able to make sure you research what's going on right before you're interviewing and things like that, different trends going on, so you know what to say and how you can creatively implement those changes and how you can help that company move forward? I think that's a great answer to something like, why are you the right candidate? Like one of those types of questions.
Without a doubt.
Hey, so I'll talk about the current, what's happening now from a future perspective, and that might be a weird way to lead in, but if you had asked me in February, would I hear remote 15,000 times from people? Can I do it remote? Can I do it remote? No, not every job in America is now remote, but that'll be the recruiting word of the year. And for most folks like myself, it'll make us just want to claw our eyes out because we don't have jobs for that, right? But what happened, right? The whole world changed. What I would say from a recruiting perspective that has always been true, if you're not forward-looking, you'll lose. I mean, because companies that do recruit from a forward-looking perspective and are always proactive and accountable and keep scorecards on recruiting, they win. Well, they're the only ones that have a hope of winning. Recruiting is always going to be insanely hard. I'd say another thing that happened, in February was working a certain way, and then you get into the summer was absolutely blown to smithereens. Yes, there's an awful lot of people that are in between roles currently, more than I've ever seen. And I'm 50 years old, and I've worked in recruiting for 22 years. So a dramatic number of unemployed. It's interesting because they won't apply for jobs. And I don't mean just with us, and we're still hiring, and I know everybody on the call probably is as well, but across the board, industry after industry, there are people kind of, I guess, on the bench. And so what happened with recruitment advertising, what worked and you would spend X on, now you had to spend 3 times X, and then it maybe still didn't work. So you're constantly, I'd say even more so today, having to learn and adapt and challenge. And I'll end by saying this, more than I've ever seen, there's always been vendors that would support the recruiting market. And I'll give you one quick example. Well, our product's mobile. Well, I don't know if you've noticed yet, mobile doesn't always mean mobile. Just because I say mobile and I'm with this vendor, it doesn't really mean that it's going to do what Brittany or Jenna or Ashley need it to do. There's not a universal term for that from a applicant tracking system or some of the tools that we would use in recruiting. So I say that to say this, I think what will happen in the future, there's been such a push to say, hey, vendors, get it together, or we're going to fire all of you, and we'll pick these that are saying it the right way and actually delivering product. I've seen us, I've worked in the last year with 2 different organizations that had to offload 2 completely different vendors that were the best in their business, and they were terrible at what they did. So constant change, but it's great. Love it.
Awesome. Well, I guess, okay, so I lied. I'm going to sneak one last question in before I get the student questions. Sorry, students, but this is a good one that I think the students will be okay with me sneaking in. So this will be, a pretty quick answer, but what opportunities do you have? Opportunities for internships, co-op, full-time, part-time? And if you don't know, just say, you know what, that's not really my role, and that's totally fine, and that's perfectly acceptable. You can just say, look our company up on Handshake, and you'll figure out what we have available. So that's a completely acceptable answer. But if you're able to talk into a little detail, just say, what at least you offer and where students can find those. That is a perfectly acceptable answer too.
So we have internships in our staffing and recruiting group, which Nelson used to be over. And, I think it's a great place to get into HR because you really get to learn healthcare and learn recruiting and staffing and organization and job descriptions and all kinds of fun stuff. And that's really the best place to get in. And we always try to, recruit from that pool too. My previous position, I would consider it entry level, but we did fill it. But I would always, again, the biggest thing, add me on LinkedIn. If you're interested in working at Covenant Health at any point, reach out and, we will try to find a position for you. We'll try to see if you're a good fit. I've had plenty of different classes I've spoken to, especially with my Excel class, that people will, connect with me afterwards and then follow up. And then I can get them, even if it's not at Covenant, I can get them connected to someone else I know. So even though I'm not as involved in that piece of it, if you reach out to me and kind of let me know what you're looking for, I usually will know someone who, who does have opportunities.
Yeah, it's just sort of me here in Tennessee. So we don't have a lot of internship opportunities, and I'm kind of all over the map, and I don't just sit at a desk. I'm really not I am sometimes, but a lot of times I'm at our sites, I'm engaged, I'm doing different things. So just now getting back into that with the pandemic and everything, just trying to work from home and give everybody a little bit of space, but there's also a lot that needs to be done. Hello, puppy.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I don't really have any internship opportunities right now. But certainly I'm open to networking, and I know a lot of people that work in Knoxville and in HR companies across of Knoxville, so certainly willing to help with networking connections too, as well as Brittany mentioned. Thanks.
For Team Health, we don't currently have any open, HR positions, but I would say that and we don't really do internships. We haven't recently, at least. But our biggest pool, I think, would be the easiest, and I think is a great opportunity for an entry-level HR job to really get a beginning taste of HR, if you will, is our HR Service Center, which is the position that I moved into where I was the senior. The title would be called the HR Representative. If you look on teamhealthcareers.com, we actually had 2 openings, and she just filled them, thankfully. But, anything can happen, of course. So get on a lookout. Of course, you can add me on LinkedIn. But yeah, nothing right now, but Team Health Careers is your best bet. You add me on LinkedIn, I can let you know. I'm open to helping you find connections if I can. And yeah, that's it for me.
Hey, nothing open currently for us. My leader and myself just joined the company back. He came on board in November of last year. I came on board as the second one hired in December to build out a national recruiting organization. And part of that, I am confident that we'll have interns at some point. I just haven't been on board long enough to build it out just yet. And then we had to hit pause and be closed for a couple of months. So that set everything aside for just a little bit, but I'm confident opportunities will happen at some point. I would say certainly you're welcome to connect on LinkedIn. I've got connections all across the country in recruiting in a wide range of industries. If that's something you want to do, I'm more than happy to help you.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for your time. And now I would love to open it up to students. So students, if you have a question, feel free to either take your mic off, or if you want to put it in the chat, that's fine too. But what questions do you have for our wonderful panelists?
I have a question. Well, my name is Elliot. I can't figure out how to change my name on Zoom. It just I spent a little while trying to do that before I gave up. But I just graduated with a degree, and I don't want to work in the field. And one of the industries that I kind of decided to investigate is HR, because I feel like it is a good match for some of my past experience before I started school. I'm an older student, so I have plenty of work experience in a couple of different fields, and I thought HR might be a good fit. And I'm just wondering what, do I just apply to entry-level positions? Do I continue networking? Or is there anything else I can do to just to highlight me as a candidate? Because I do have several years of work experience, solid experience, and that I feel is pretty good and related to HR and would be a good fit.
I'd be happy to field that. I know it's totally out of order. I'm sorry. So, hey, one of the things that I stumbled along in my own just personal journey, interviewing with different companies was I interviewed years ago to potentially sell pharmaceutical products, be a pharma rep, drug rep, and they would force you to have a brag book instead of a resume. Well, I'm not a braggy person, but I realized if I didn't have a brag book, I wouldn't make it past the phone screen to ever meet anybody, and I'd just be out, right? So I didn't end up doing that. I stayed in recruiting, as I mentioned, for like ever, and plan to do it, another 20 years, God willing. But I took that concept and thought, well, gosh, why just have a resume, right? So the first thing I would tell you is you've got some work experience. So go back and look at what you've done. And when I say done, I'm talking really anything from certifications that Jenna mentioned earlier. I scored this on this test, and hey, I've got this thing that I can add, to a recommendation letter, to what would traditionally be on a resume. Think more about your career journey, and if you could put it into a book. And I'm not necessarily saying to go have it hardbound. There's probably 10 different ways to do your version of your book. It'll help you interview better, first of all. Second of all, it'll help you sell yourself better. If you and I are up against each other and we're equally qualified, and I only have my resume, and you bring into the interview, your book with all this extra documentation and supporting things that past supervisors have said, or coaches from a sport you played, all the different things that you could have done in life, right, in there, then you're going to beat me out. Second thing I'd say is don't apply. I mean, it's fine to go on Indeed and find the role, but like many of us have said, get in LinkedIn or get into a group, find a way to network your way into that job opening. Don't be in the 200 that apply, be in the 2 that go in the in the LinkedIn message box. Or get handed, down the hall that way. I can just tell you, I've viewed way too many people that would have been great if they weren't buried in the ATS.
Yeah, I'm going to bounce off what Nelson said. Again, you've got to do something that makes yourself stand out. And because you have that extra outside experience, that already makes you better because you're bringing something different to the table. So really emphasize that. And again, like Nelson said, honestly, if you find a position that you're interested in, see if you have any mutual connections on LinkedIn and see if you can reach out and just talk to the actual manager, because you have a lot better chance of landing that job if you've already connected to the manager and the manager says, hey, why don't you apply? Versus just sending your name in and then you're just a name on a resume, or like Nelson said, in the ATS, it just kind of gets buried in there. So finding a way to differentiate yourself and then finding a connection in that company to really say like, hey, I'm a person, here's all the cool things that I can bring to the table that make me a good,
I think having a good statement to really sum that up too. So what Brittany said, make sure you have a good, what can you bring to the table? How can I relate the things I've done to be a good fit for your role? Go look at that job description, take what you've done and make a good statement before you send that LinkedIn message. Make sure you're trying to really relate those experiences that you do have, because you do have a unique skill set you can bring to the table, but being able to articulate that and explaining that to that connection will make all the difference. That would be, I agree with Nelson and Brittany, but I would just add that as an additional.
Y'all covered it, so.
I guess I'll pop in the last advice, even though I'm not a panelist, but utilize the office that I work in, utilize your career center. You've got alumni benefits for life. That's a perk of, Vol for life. That's not only, a phrase used on campus. It's not only a technique used by our development office to make sure our alumni stay engaged, but it's also a fact. Alumni career services, you have that for life. So if it's your first year, you can go to if you graduated within the last year, you can go to the Center for Career Development and just go to your coach that way. If you're interested in, obviously HR, you can make an appointment with me. We can talk more, one-on-one in depth about, what the certain things that you're doing, tips that I might have for you additionally. Hunter Pritchard's the other business consultant. We also have Kim Hatcher, who's our GA. So between the three of us, we've got plenty of calendar availability. So if you go in on Handshake, you can make an appointment that way too. So at least for your first year, you can use us. Then even in the future, Alumni Career Services really is. It's Vol for life. You have that access always. So don't forget about us as a resource too to help you out with that. I'm happy to talk more in depth in the future.
And I'm so sorry, but I just want to say I totally forgot to give a plug for career services because they were the ones who told me to do HR. So I started out, I left this part out, but I'm going to say it now. I started out in art school for photography, and then it was too far from home, and I liked it as a hobby. So then I moved to UT to do psychology, and then I figured that would be too hard on my emotions. So I had no idea what I wanted, and I went to career services, and I filled out. I had a coach, and I filled out all the career testing, and they said you should do HR. And at that point I was still a little hesitant, but that was really the thing that kicked me into, well, maybe it's not as bad as it sounds. So I'm so sorry I forgot to do that plug earlier.
All right, if there's one takeaway from this, it's Brittany saying, well, maybe HR isn't as bad as it sounds. So if anyone's curious about a building career, that's the statement. I'm kidding, obviously, just giving you a hard time. Any other student questions?
Hi, I have a question. I'm Soraya. I'm an undergrad. I'm a sophomore this year, and I've been struggling with finding the difference between IO psychology and human resource management. UT does not offer an IO psych program anymore. And I came into it thinking I'd go into just general psychology. Well, I've created my own major through the College Scholars Program that they offer. And I titled it A Humanitarian IO Psychology, Emphasizing International Public Policy. Well, I'm finding issues with trying to find connections, mentors, like-minded peers, anything really, because I have like a big toe in Haslam and the rest in arts and sciences, and Haslam's so exclusive. Well, when I found out after speaking in my Psychology 110 class, and IO Psych came to speak with us, and I really found it fascinating. Like I told you guys in the chat, like the personalities that are in here, like that is so me. And loving finding potential, like you said, Nelson, like literally everything you all said, it just morph all those together, and then like I'm your baby child. And so I know that like I'm in the right direction, but I don't have anyone there that can, no clubs, no anything. And so I'm wondering if anyone has any tips for like networking, because it's proven to be really hard because I'm so on the fringes of one major.
I'll start this one. Again, I'm not even a panelist and I'm just interjecting. But sorry, make an appointment with me. I'm a Haslam career consultant, but that doesn't mean you can't make it. If you're interested in in business industry,
yes,
make one with me, and we will go through. I will answer every single question that you have.
Well, hello, thanks. I've been waiting for this. Like I said, I'm always the only undergrad because I am a non-traditional student. I've decided to go to the military first and got some experience. I'm a pediatric nurse now. I work in the ICU for the military. I just recently got married, so I like wear all these different hats. And I came back, and like you said, Brittany, psychology, and then I was in healthcare actually as a nurse. It is very draining. I get drained. I love people so much. I'm a very empathic person, but people, I'm drained at the end of my 12-hour shift. And so I had to kind of start thinking about staying in a career that I would love to do, that I didn't have to sacrifice my personality. And so, yeah, I think IO psychology, the psychology in the workplace, applying that. So it is kind of human resources, but I looked it up and they're different. So I'm like, what's the difference? And, how can I get connected with individuals? Maybe I might want to be HRM. I don't know, because I don't know what the difference is. And so, yeah, I really need some help with that. But yeah, thank you. I will, could you pronounce your name again for me? I'm sorry.
Which one, me?
You, yeah.
I should have, obviously. I mean, look at my name. Look at the way it's spelled. It's Nialo. So it's knee like your knee, all like all the people on the Zoom call, and O like the letter.
Yeah, I like that. I will remember that. Thank you so much for that. I really need some help, and so I've been trying to look for some information and a mentor.
Absolutely. It sounds like Elliot put his LinkedIn in the chat there, and he used to work for an IO psychologist, so he could potentially provide some good info there. And it looked like Nelson was about to jump in with defining the two and differentiating, which I'm so grateful to have him, because now we are definitely outside of my field of practice.
Well, I know just enough to be dangerous. So I actually almost went to grad school at UT Chattanooga in IO Psych. It was harder to get into that than it was to start an MBA. I said start, I didn't finish. I really wasn't a classroom guy. Too much being seated in one place, I think. I can't tell you for sure where it lands itself in the business world, so I can't answer that question for you. But I will say a couple of things. One, with your healthcare background and your personality, there are plenty of organizations, maybe the three even on the call, that hire recruiters. That it wouldn't hurt for you to have the clinical background that you have to go and do that side really well. And if they won't hire you, there are plenty of staffing firms that focus on healthcare specifically, or I know seas of people that absolutely would hire you in a heartbeat as soon as you're out of school. So keep my contact info. Second thing I'd say is I wouldn't worry too much about, well, I studied X, so I should work in X. Half the world studies X and doesn't go do it, okay? And that is okay to do. There's a thought process, I think, that means if I go to school to study a certain thing, I've got to go and do that in life. And well, I would say if you set up the appointment that our distinguished colleague mentioned, come see me in the Center for Career Development, I think their surveys would even show that's not necessarily the norm, that if you study a certain thing, meaning it could be that you still finish that curriculum because it's an interest and it builds some strength for you, but you end up doing something a little different from a job perspective.
Yeah, well, that's great with college scholars, because I can literally choose anything that I want, and I have the opportunity to be able to, I have a goal in mind of where I want to go. I actually know like kind of companies who I want to work for, but I know that's just a plan and things can change, but I have the opportunity to be able to take it's kind of interdisciplinary, if you will, to get that skill set that you need for the tools in your toolbox to succeed. And I think my situation makes it to where it's unique that I can be able to choose what I need to move forward. So any recommendations, they would be great, because then I would probably be able, and then I'm still kind of early on in the college, first semester, sophomore year. I still have time to be able to acquire those skills that a job might need for me to have before I graduate.
Any other questions today? Cool. Well, I want to once again thank our amazing panelists for joining this call. I will also, I think we didn't get through a single round of questions without someone shouting out Debbie Mackey. So I'm also going to shout out Debbie Mackey, because she's how I staffed this call. I already knew Nelson and everybody else I got as a contact from Debbie. So shout out Debbie Mackey. Can't say enough great things about that woman. And thanks to her. And again, thanks to all of you so much for your time with this. connect for students too. Connect with me on LinkedIn. Connect with our wonderful participants on LinkedIn too. It sounded like they were all willing and available for some additional follow up, which is great. I'll just put this in the chat too, just names and companies of everybody. So you can make sure you've got the right one. So again, thank you guys so much for your availability, not only tonight, but additionally for being a resource for our students. I know I appreciate that. This is a great example. Look at this, Vol for Life. Another example of it. A bunch of alums, all and honorary alum in Nelson. UTC, close enough. Close enough. So again, thank you all so much. This was a great call. I know I really enjoyed it. I hope that you guys had a lot of fun with this too. And it sounds like I definitely got some great information to our students too. So thank you again so much, and I hope everybody has a great evening. Take care.
Bye. Thank you for having us. Bye.
It was awesome. Appreciate y'all.